Okay, so today we're going to do a lesson on adding and subtracting fractions, and we're just going to start with a simple equation, 1/4 plus 1/4. So I'm going to pretend that my circle is a piece of pie, and if I divide this pie into 4 pieces, one-fourth is represented by one of these pieces. So I ate 1/4 of the pie, and then I ate another fourth. So 1/4 plus 1/4 would be 2/4. I ate 2 out of 4 pieces. So adding and subtracting fractions is simple when the denominator is the same. If the denominator is the same in both fractions, then all you have to do is add the numerator. So here I added 1 plus 1 equals 2, and the denominator stayed the same because the denominator was 4 in both problems. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, the next problem we have is 2/5 plus 1/5. Again, it's simple when the denominator is the same because all we have to do here is add the numerator. So 2/5 plus 1/5 is the same thing as saying 2 plus 1 over 5. We keep the denominator the same. 2 plus 1 equals 3. So I know that 2/5 plus 1/5 equals 3/5. All right, now that we've done some simple fraction addition, let's move on to subtraction. Again, if the denominator is the same rule applies for subtraction. You keep it the same. We don't do anything to the denominator when it's the same. So here I have 3/7 minus 2/7. That's the same thing as saying 3 minus 2 over 7. And I know that 3 minus 2 equals 1. If I can get this out of here. So I've got 1/7 is my answer. Okay, let's move on to the next problem. If our denominators are different, the first thing we have to do is find the least common denominator. What that means is we need to find a multiple of 2 and 4, the lowest common denominator that we can find. And since 2 will go into 4 twice, then we know that 2/4 is the equivalent of 1/2. Let me pull down my pie chart and fraction bar here and show you. Alright, so here's a pie chart for 1/4. And here's a pie chart for 1/2. You can see here that if I were to shade in another fourth of this pie, that would be equivalent to 1/2 over here. So I know that 2/4 equals 1/2. So I can change this fraction here. I can erase 1/2, and I can call it 2/4 instead. Because I know that 2/4 is the same thing as 1/2. So here I've added 2/4 and 1/4. If I add 2/4 and 1/4, so here I've got 2/4, and I add 1 more fourth to that, now it makes it a little easier because my denominator is now the same. So I only have to add 1 plus 2, which is 3, and I keep my denominator the same. So I know that 1/4 plus 1/2 equals 3/4. Let's move on to the next problem. Okay, let's do another fraction addition problem where the denominators are different. Again, I need to figure out what the least common denominator is. So what's a multiple of 2 and 6, the lowest multiple? Well, I know that 2 will go into 6 3 times. So there are a few ways that I can do this. I want to make my 2 a 6. So in order to change my 2 to a 6, I multiply both my numerator and denominator by 3 because I knew that 2 can only become 6 if I multiply it by 3. Okay? 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 times 2 is 6. So I know, oh, my pen's not working. Go back to pen mode. That 1/2 is the equivalent of 3, 6. Okay, let's try to get out of here. There we go, 3, 6. Now let's check to make sure I'm right. I'm going to pull up my fraction bar. Okay, here I have my pie chart, my fraction bar. I want to make sure that 3/6 is the same thing as 1/2. So I'm going to pull down my fraction chart, if it'll work for me. Okay, I'll just have to go over the computer and use it. Alright, so I'm going to pull down my fraction chart. And I'm going to pull down 1/2. Here's 1/2. And I'm going to make 3, 6. Just to double check that they are equivalent. And when I put the pie charts next to each other, I can see that they are in fact equivalent. 1/2 is the same thing as 3/6. So that would work. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my problem and show you again what I did. I needed to find my least common denominator, so I needed to make sure that 2 became 6. Because 6 is the lowest number that they both have in common. So I took 3 times 2 and 3 times 1 and got 3, 6. So I know that 1/2 is equivalent to 3, 6. Now I can add my fractions because the denominator is the same. So now I can add 3, 6 plus 3, 6. And this makes it a little easier for me. I know that 3 plus 3 is 6. And I keep my denominator the same. So now I have 6 over 6. And my students know this. We've learned that any number over itself always equals 1 whole. So let's double check our work just to make sure we've done everything correctly. So our original problem was 1/2 plus 3, 6. And we're saying down here that that's going to equal 1 whole. Well, let's be sure by making pie charts. Okay? So let's drop down our menu. Okay. Here's 1/2. And here's 3, 6. Okay, if we add these two pie charts together, we've got 1/2 plus 3, 6. And if we put them together, we've got 1 whole pie chart filled in. So that does, in fact, equal 1 whole. Another way to check our work is after we changed our denominator to 6, we had 3, 6 plus 3, 6. And when we put those two together, we have a whole circle that's shaded in. So we know that that does, in fact, equal 1 whole. All right. I'm going to move on to my next problem. Okay, here again we have different denominators, so the first thing we have to do is find the least common denominator, the lowest common denominator. And we have 5 and 10. So I asked myself, what is the lowest number that 5 and 10 have in common? 5 can become 10 if we multiply it by 2. So I'm going to multiply 5 by 2. And whatever I do to the denominator, I also have to do to the numerator. So 2 times 5 is 10, and 2 times 3 is 6. Now my denominators are the same, so I can easily add my fractions. I know that 6 plus 2 equals 8, and my denominator stays the same now that I've found my lowest common denominator. 8/10. Let's be sure that our work is right by checking with a fraction bar. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to bring my fraction chart back up here, and this time I'm going to use a fraction bar. So I had, my original problem was 3/5 plus 2/10. So let's start with that. So I have 2/10 here. Let me erase this for you. Okay. All right, that's good enough for now. There. All right, so I had 2/10 plus 3/5 was my original problem. Alright. But I needed to make those denominators the same. So what I did was multiply the 5 by 2 so that both denominators would be 10. And I said that 3/5 is the same thing as 6/10. Let's see if we were right. 3/5 is the same as 6/10. You can see my fraction bars here match. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of my 3/5. So my final problem, I added 2/10 plus 6/10. If I add 2/10 plus 6/10, I should get 8/10. And I do in fact have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the squares shaded in. So I know that 2/10 plus 6/10 equals 8/10. Okay, let's do one last problem. This time, instead of showing you with the fraction bar, I'm only going to find my least common denominator and multiply. So let's say I have 5/8 plus 2/4. I need to find the least common denominator for 8 and 4. Well, I know that 4 can become 8. And I asked myself, how can I make a 4 into an 8? I can multiply it times 2. So I'm going to go over here and multiply both my numerator and denominator times 2, because whatever I do to the denominator, I also have to do to the numerator. And my new fraction is 4 times 2 is 8, and 2 times 2 is 4. So my new fraction is 4, that's not what I need to write there, 4/8. So now my denominators are the same, and I add 5/8 plus 4/8 equals 9/8. And this is called an improper fraction, and we're going to get into this next week, but I'll just show you for now what we would do with this. We know that this is more than 1 whole. 8/8 equals 1 whole. So if I wanted to write this as a mixed number, it would be 1 and 1/8. You would have 1/8 left over. But for now, you can leave it as an improper fraction, 9/8. That's fine. Okay, so to wrap up this lesson, I want to give you 2 sample problems that you're going to do in your lesson log tonight. So I'll write those up here on the board, and I'm not going to give you the answers. I'm just going to set up the problems for you, and I want you to come prepared tomorrow to show us how you solve the problem, explain what strategy you used, and then bring any questions that you may have. Okay, so the 2 problems that you're going to do tonight are 6/10 2 fifths. The second problem that you're going to do tonight, so again, 6/10 plus 2 fifths. The next problem you're going to do is 2 fourths minus 1 half. All right, good luck, and we'll talk about it tomorrow.